Happy Friday from the Randy Karraker Show, STL Sports Central, presented by DraftKings, where the crown is yours. Matthew Rocchio is with me. Bernie Miklasz will join us later in the hour, as he does on Friday. We're looking forward to that. We always want to hear from you on the chat. We got a lot to talk about. Cardinals getting ever closer to 500 with a 7-4 win over the Tampa Bay Rays last night. So the Cardinals are 64-65, Matthew. Here come the Cardinals. Holy cow.
Oh, yeah. I'm getting so excited. Wild card still kind of right there. Ridiculous. Yeah. Absolutely ridiculous.
Sonny Gray picks up his 12th win, though. Cardinals get 5 good innings out. Well, 5 innings out of him. That's
all the jerseys they brought for him, by the way.
It's a 2025 quality start.
Yeah, and it's by the way, it's not. It was like it worked out well. It's like, Sonny, we have 5 jerseys. So he went through 5 innings, and I'm sure his arm was also tired. But he looked, he goes, guys, where's jersey number 6? We don't have a 6 jersey, son. He goes, I ain't pitching in this damp rag. So you had to make a little quick change there.
So in the bullpen, only allowed 1 run. Leahy allows a run in his 1 inning of work. 3rd straight game, he's allowed an earned run. Still just a 3 ERA in 18 innings pitched since the All-Star break. In the bullpen, that's been the bright spot, even with all the trades. I mean, you'd rather have the way this bullpen has performed than the way that Phil Maton and Ryan Helsley have performed since the trade deadline.
That's for damn sure. And Jojo Romero gives you 2 innings yesterday, strikes out 3. He looked extremely solid in a different role than we've seen him since the All-Star break. Swanson was kind of working through some issues there. Took him 15 pitches to get through the 1 inning, walks 2 batters. He was struggling a little bit as well. It was a hot one, but they got through it, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, no doubt about it. By the way, I have not kept up. And the guy I liked most, not that I disliked Ryan Helsley, but my favorite guy that they traded was Steven Matz.
He was the one who hadn't gotten hit those first couple of weeks. Yep. Like when Maton got hit and Helsley got rocked a little bit. Yep. Matz was...
So he's got a 1.08 for them in 8 games.
Yeah.
8 1/3 innings. He has allowed,
1 earned run.
3 hits, 1 earned run. So good for Steven. And he'll be at Yankee Stadium tonight for the Red Sox and the Yankees. By the way, 6 strikeouts for Steven Matz and just a couple of walks. So good for Steven. Hopefully he's earned himself. I don't think he has. Hopefully he's earned himself a little bit of money, though, for 2026.
Hey, bring him back.
Why not? He's a good guy. He's a good room guy, and he's really good on Big League Impact. You know, he helps out with all that. So yeah, let's bring him back. Okay, you note on the show plan today, and I hadn't even really thought about this, but Jordan Walker is in a lull. Do you want to call it a lull?
I think it's fair to call it a lull.
Or a slump.
Slump seems a little bit longer than a lull, right?
Okay.
Like a lull, like a blip, a lull, a slump, a trend, I believe would be the categorization here. So you might even call it a blip.
He's what we would call woefully inconsistent.
Yes, and that's the problem when you're trying to figure out what a player is. Inconsistency is the issue. On the other flip side of the coin is a guy like Gorman has shown a lot of consistency over the last 2 months, since it's 2-3 months that he's been healthy, and he continues to hit, gets 2 more hits last night. But Jordan Walker, he started just one of the Cardinals' last 4 games.
Yeah.
And if you go back to the Cubs series, after that 3-hit game in game 1, since game 2, he's hitting 183 in the last 2+ series. If you go all the way back to August, it's a little bit better, but it's still completely lagging behind that plus 300 that he was hitting July and into early August.
And if you're facing a left-hander, and I'm a Walker fan, and like I've said, I don't know what to do with him, but I think when J.J. Weatherholt gets here, he's a left-handed hitter. You'd rather see him against a left-handed pitcher. You mentioned Gorman. Here we are now, 5 multi-hit games in a row for Lars Nootbaar. I really kind of think, and obviously Burleson and Donovan are going to play ahead of Jordan Walker, even against a left-handed pitcher. I think when we talk about runway, here we are closing in on the end of the 5th month of the 6-month runway. I think all of those guys would be guys that I would put in a lineup against a left-handed pitcher ahead of Jordan Walker, who's a right-handed hitter.
List the guys again.
Weatherholt, Burleson, Donovan, Gorman, Nootbaar.
Yeah, that's all fair. And that's a lot of people to be ahead of your guy that's supposed to be one of your top players going into next year. Samuel House says Jordan is working on some stuff in the cage, Rocchio. I hope so, because right now whatever he's doing at the plate over the last 2+ series has not been working for him. But again, it is just the last two series for Jordan Walker. He could easily, have 5 good games and erase this blip. But the problem is we're seeing an inconsistency. I was looking at some videos that people were posting last night. I don't know the technical part about hitting, but I like to try to see what people are pointing out. A lot of people are pointing out that he's loading his hands in a really in kind of a time wasting manner, and that every time he goes to take a step, his back goes up before it actually gets back into the zone. So he's wasting time, and that's why it's another reason why he's so bad at those outside pitches again. And so it looks like the same issues we talked about, maybe not flaring up in the exact same ways, but it seems like the same underlying issue of he takes himself out of his the early part of his swing in some way that he can't get to the entire plate is starting to rear its ugly head again.
And it's kind of a shame because they clearly told us that they wanted him to change. They desired a swing change on the part of Jordan Walker. And when you look at what he did in the minors, how he got to the major league level, he had an OPS of 936 in his first year in professional baseball. The first year was a washout because of the pandemic, but then in 2021, after not playing in 2020, he has a 936 OPS. Then he plays in 2022 for Springfield and Salt River and winds up with an OPS of 898, which was pretty good. And then in 2023 in Memphis, an 746. But remember, he never played in Memphis in the typical progression to the majors. He came from Springfield to the majors, and I think that was an issue with him, with rushing him, and that might have messed him up. But then when he came up, has a 12-game hitting streak, and then has a couple of games where he doesn't get a hit, and they say, you know what, we want you to change your swing. I think that probably affected him as much as anything.
Yeah, and it's hard not to lock in on that moment and see where things potentially changed in the professional career for Jordan Walker before it ever got started. And I understand why people get angry and frustrated with what happens with these young players in St. Louis, because that's a hard story to listen to. And it was a hard thing to watch in the moment. And in the moment, it felt like it could get solved. But now we're here 2 years later, and we're dealing with the exact same issues.
Right.
Darrell Whitener says, I think it's time for Walker to move on. He will probably have a nice career, but STL is not the place for him. We've been doing weekly updates on your current perspective of Jordan Walker after 2 or 3 weeks ago now. You said that you're not giving up on him, but you don't know if his future is with the Cardinals.
That's the big thing. Yeah, and the other part of it that I look at, and I said before, look at how and let's go all the way back to a guy like Manny Ibar. Manny Ibar was a right-handed pitcher for the Cardinals in the 90s, and they could have traded him for Kevin Brown, and they decided not to because they thought that Ibar had incredible upside, so they wouldn't move him. And they did wind up packaging him with a group of other players to get Darryl Kyle and Dave Veer. So he wasn't completely a waste for the Cardinals, but they missed out on an opportunity to get real value for him one-on-one. Then you look at Dylan Carlson, who they could have traded and gotten value for, and they wind up getting Sean Armstrong for him because they didn't trade him in time. They thought he was going to be good. Well, now, especially when you have other hitters, we just mentioned all the lefty hitters that they have, plus you have Herrera, you're going to have Contreras, you're going to have right-handed hitters around. I think if I were the Cardinals, I would say before that value dissipates at the age of 23 to turn 24 next May, I think I would listen to every single offer for Jordan Walker this offseason. I'm not going to trade him for nothing, but if I could get value for Jordan Walker, I still think that that's where I fall.
Yep. Rich Cam 427. If JW18 had any baseball IQ whatsoever, we may be looking at St. Louis's version of Aaron Judge. I don't know if it's baseball IQ.
It's not baseball IQ.
That doesn't seem to be the issue with me.
No, he's become a pretty good right fielder, an above average right fielder. No, it's the problem that he has is that he's had a million voices in his head, and the Cardinals, there was a year where they had 2 hitting coaches, Jim Edmonds, and then they sent him down to the minors. And so and Ollie, and he's got all these different thoughts in his head. And Mike Shannon used to say the worst thing you can do when you get to the plate is think. And he's obviously thinking about a lot of stuff, and they are asking him to be something that he's not. They're asking him to be a launch angle guy They're asking him to hit like Aaron Judge, and he's not Aaron Judge. He's a line drive hitter, and they just aren't accepting what they have. And they talk about how, yeah, well, now he's buying in. I think at some point the organization that he plays for has to buy into him too.
Eric Cleveland, the narrative at the club messed up Walker is out of control. He has zero pitch recognition. My issue with that statement is that I think it's hard to criticize a player's pitch recognition when, because of his swing mechanics, there's chunks of the plate he can't get to. And that's one of the reasons why he's so bad at lowing away pitches, is because his swing has held him, is handicapping him in a way. And so it's hard for me to say he has no pitch recognition, because even if he recognizes those pitches, it's going to look like he has no idea what to do with them because he can't get to them.
Yeah, and I don't think it has anything to do with IQ. I don't think it's a narrative that we're dealing with. I think we're dealing strictly with reality here. And one thing, again, the Cardinals asked him, when you talk about thinking, when they sent him down, I don't remember if it was the first time in 23 or if it was last year, but that was another thing they said. They wanted him to swing at different pitches. They wanted him to pick out pitches that he could do damage with rather than pitches that he could hit line drives with. And so when you do look for different pitches, that changes the way you approach things at the plate. And he has been told by Cardinal coaches to change his approach. And I don't know that that is beneficial for a young hitter like that. I think sometimes you can go to an older hitter and say, hey, here's why you're missing this. Maybe you should change what you're looking for a little bit. They did that with Matt Carpenter, and he started hitting a lot more home runs. But I don't know that that's the best thing to do with a kid who's 21, 22 years old.
Greg Lewis, yes, no one wants a potential 300 hitter on their team. Leave Walker alone. Let him play.
Yeah, and I think that ultimately, if he gets to a franchise like Tampa, that's probably what would happen, is that if they could have him for a spring training, they would probably let him play. And Kevin Cash has a really good bedside manner, and he could turn into a really good player. I just don't think it's going to happen here. And it's a shame. And I don't know, like I said a couple of weeks ago too, I still don't know if he's going to be good or bad. I haven't made a decision. He hasn't played enough. He's 23, but I don't think it's going to happen here.
Is it problematic that obviously it's partially because he's struggling, but the Cardinals playing him just one of the last 4 games, or starting him, I should say, just one of the last 4 games. What are your thoughts on that, considering where they are, where this season is, and how important knowing what Jordan Walker is to the plan?
Well, and maybe he's not important to the plan anymore because you're giving Nootbaar a run here rather than him. And you're giving Nathan Church run rather than him. So, and by the way, there's another left-handed hitter for you, but you're playing players that a month ago would have been sitting while Jordan Walker was playing. And now they've decided to sit Walker, and maybe they've decided, okay, we've seen enough, and the runway has run out, and he's not going to be part of the plans. Maybe they've determined that.
Yeah, and to your point, it's like how do you get him in the lineup? The last 3 of those last 4 games, it would have been Nootbaar, who's been playing in the right field with Alec Burleson in left field. In all 3 of the games that Jordan Walker didn't play in, the one game that Jordan Walker did play in, Lars Nootbaar played at center field. So
Eddie Grant, Walker is a bust. The clown media, that's me, props him up, but he is not going to make it. He should not start. We are 4 games out with 33 to play. Well, this clown media isn't delusional enough to think that the starting pitching is going to be able to put together a run. If you're suggesting that the Cardinals have a chance to make the playoffs, that ain't going to happen. So you do have 33 games to evaluate players. I would suggest that the Cardinals would be smarter to evaluate guys than to try to chase the dream of a playoff spot.
Dale Johnson, put Newton center and let Walker play right field. That's the one situation they have right now. But Eric Cleveland says Ollie's still trying to win games. Walker doesn't give him or the team the best chance to win.
Well, Ollie is Ollie has never. Yeah, he is trying to win games. There's no doubt about that, and he's trying to play players. But it appears, judging from the stretch from the start of the Yankee series on, that other players are getting runway. I don't know if it's trying to win games or if it's trying to give players runway, because they didn't really win a lot against the Yankees over the weekend.
No, it didn't really work too well, but they are 4 out, and I guess people are still
Dreaming.
Care about making the wild card. I would love a run, but again, making a run has always been a secondary thing to playing everyone you should be playing in these games. And I get that you maybe don't want to expose your pitching too bad, so you don't want to do too much news and center. You just look at Jordan Walker going back to since he returned with the team post All-Star break, and he batted 263 with an almost 700 OPS. The only reason the OPS is slagging is because the slugging is not there. We can be honest about that. He slugged 368 since the break. Only 8 extra base hits there. 7 doubles and 1 home run. So yeah, the power needs to find a way, but the fact that he can go on a stretch, even when he has a half of a month where he hits 180, and that's still part of a stretch where he hit 260 over just 30 games, clearly he's a guy who can hit those stretches to, I think it was Craig Lewis's point a lot earlier, that he could be a 280, 290 hitter. He's just not going to have the power everyone expects from a 6'6", 250-pound player. I don't think that means he's a bust, what everyone's saying, and I don't think that means you shouldn't keep giving him a chance to find out what he is. If he can do that, what he did in July, he's a useful player for you going forward, or he's a useful trade piece going forward.
Craig Lewis, give Nootbaar the runway, then trade him in the offseason. I don't think that's a bad thought. Because he is going to get a little bit more expensive, and you still have way too many left-handed hitters. And so somebody's got to go, right? I think.
Yes, you can't. It's just you have a lot of versatility position-wise that you don't really want to views, but you don't have any versatility with the righty-lefty things. And you have a couple players who don't have terrible reverse splits, but they don't seem to care about Nolan Gorman's reverse splits. So I just don't know what you got to move them.
Yeah. They need to let Ollie know where he stands for next year so he doesn't think he's managing for his job.
I know the whole lame duck manager thing, but
Ollie has been very consistent from day one with pretty much everybody. And he said it on and off the record with the cameras on and behind the scenes that there was a parallel path here, but the primary goal of this year was to enhance the organization by allowing players to grow. He said, that's what this is all about, is allowing players to grow this whole season. And he would have changed some things probably earlier in the season. Maybe if he thought he was managing for his job. I don't believe that he thinks he's managing for his job. And based on the Ken Rosenthal piece at The Athletic, he doesn't care either. He's very comfortable in his skin and what he's done. I don't believe that he believes that he's managing for his job.
No, and even if he did, he's not letting it. He's not managing like it might be in his mind that he knows it's happening, but I don't think he lets it affect his managing. I think you're 100% correct there.
By the way, if do you believe that the Cardinals have a playoff chance?
Mathematically, they do. Yeah. Well, you know what? Let's take a look at the schedule.
Here's the thing.
No, I'm not enthusiastic, but
okay.
For me, it's gravy. If it happens, I'm happy because it's gravy. But my point is, I'm still at a point where to get there, you can't, throw off the plan and play people just to win games. And if you look at some of these series, so 4 games against Pittsburgh, 3 games against Cincinnati away. They host the A's. They host the Giants in Seattle, in Milwaukee, host Seattle, host Milwaukee, host San Francisco, and in Chicago. Oh, I'm in San Francisco. Oh my God, they play. They're in San Francisco the day after I leave.
No!
After I leave San Francisco, they're on Monday. I leave on Sunday. Damn it! So that's a lot of games against the Giants, a lot of games against the Milwaukee Brewers, and some against the Cubs at the end of the season, the Mariners as well. No, they're not making the playoffs. Those teams are all going to try to absolutely bury them to get as many wins as they can to close out everything on their side of the things for playoffs and things like that. I think they're going to get buried in September. And so I care a lot more about who's playing than what happens.
Here's my thing. And I'm just trying to be logical here. So, and Rich Cam 427, if STL makes the playoffs, it'll be because 2-3 other teams have a historic collapse and that just isn't happening. I would tend to agree with that. But if you are somebody who's really enthusiastic about the Cardinals making the playoffs, like the chat that, hey, we only have 4 games left with 33 to play, we should be going for it. Well, then doesn't that mean if you truly believe that the Cardinals are a playoff team and have a chance to do something in the playoffs, by definition, doesn't that mean that John Mozeliak has done a good job and there's no reason for him to go?
Phrase that one more time for me.
If the Cardinals are a playoff team and have a chance to do some damage in the playoffs, doesn't that mean that John Mozeliak has done a good job? He's put together a team that is capable of reaching the postseason and winning games in the postseason.
Much like how Sonny Gray for 2025 is a good number 1 pitcher, for 2025, relative to the rest of baseball, John Mozeliak will have done a good job.
Okay, so why get rid of him?
Well, because he wants to change things. Doesn't he kind of want to? Isn't he at the end of the rope a little bit?
Oh, maybe not.
I feel like it's a little column A, a little column B.
But why would fans be down on him? Why would you be down on a Pobo who built a playoff team?
Because there's a chunk of fans who are accepting that this team is a wild card team only, but they don't accept the premise that you should only be a wild card team. But if John Mozeliak failed to build better than a wild card team, in their opinion, he failed.
Okay. Well,
because it's too easy to be a wild card team in baseball nowadays, and it doesn't actually
jibe for me. Because that means to me, if you're in the playoffs, you're closer to getting to the World Series than you are if you don't make the playoffs.
But there are a group of people who say, just because baseball's playoffs have been diluted, my expectations for what a good baseball team will not be diluted. And so if you're only good enough to be the second or third wild card, in my estimation, you are not building a good enough baseball team. And that's why I gave the caveat in 2025, he's doing a fine job as a GM, because in 2025, your job as a GM is to make the playoffs. The thing is that there are fans out there who draw a hard line between what was a playoff team and what is a playoff team now. And they use that line to delineate failure and success.
Okay. So they're living in the past, basically.
Yes.
Okay.
They're basically saying if you're not winning your division, you're not really a playoff team, because that's how baseball should be run.
Okay. Well, I think if you don't get to the World Series, because it used to be that way, that you had to win your league.
Mm-hmm.
You had to have the best record in your league, and then you went to the World Series before 1969. I think that's the way it should be.
See, because we get stuff here. The 2025 Cardinals are a playoff team in the same way 2025 Aaron Rodgers is elite. Samuel Howell. Let's add another playoff team or two then, Randy. It's those. That's where I think a lot of the fans are still problematic, or guys like Jay to the Army who just say because the roster construction is still a mess, even if they make the playoffs.
Well, how can that be the case? What if they would win? Like, would the roster construction be a mess if you got to the National League Championship Series?
No, I'd have to eat some crow about the roster being a mess. I'd have to admit I was wrong.
So, like in 2011, was that roster construction horrible? I don't know. It seems like you had a pretty young bullpen and you didn't have a very good starting rotation. And you had an injured outfielder and your bench wasn't great. You had an Alan Craig who wasn't a very good outfielder that had to play in the outfield for you. I don't
know. Show me rocks. No stars on this team to draw in dollars from fans. Got back into collecting baseball cards the past 3 years and was amazed how much collectors have devalued the prospects in this organization. But is that like an actual, like, that's
I don't know.
Good prospects don't actually equal cards. It's about scarcity.
Win. I don't know if the value of cards, maybe it does. Was winning.
Chris Widener. To be serious for the playoffs, we need Walker to suddenly find it, Gorman to continue to progress, Herrera to remember what power is, let JJ cook, and starters drop 1.30 in ERA. Easy smeezy.
Yeah, nothing to it, Chris. Yep, thanks. Samuel Howell. Walt did a good job. Walt did a fabulous job. Walt is going to go into the Cardinals Hall of Fame because he did a magnificent job. Now, when you talk about old-timey, Walt Jocketty's last year as the Cardinals general manager was 2007. Walt Jocketty could not do in 2025 what he did between 1994 and 2007. He was magnificent at that time, but times they are a changing, and they have changed. And I don't think that Walt could accomplish with the deals that he made what he did then. There's no way that he'd be able to pull that off now.
Chan the Man says, I have zero faith in a playoff run solely due to the performance against the Rockies.
That's fair. Yeah, this team was not set up to be a playoff team. Nobody from the organization ever said we're a playoff team. And I've said this before, and if you were listening or watching when I said it, I apologize for the redundancy. But it used to be when Mo would make a trade, like when he made the trades for Lester and Happ, or when he made the trades for Montgomery and Quintana and Stratton, he would say, hopefully we can surprise some people. Meaning, we aren't that good, but hopefully we can go to the playoffs. You didn't hear any of that at all this year. Even when the Cardinals went on their little run, he said, well, I hope that they can make the decision difficult for me at the trade deadline. Well, they really didn't, because they sold. I don't think anybody inside that organization ever really considered this to be a playoff team. And I never considered this to be a playoff team. And because the Cardinals never told us that this was going to be a playoff team, I don't know why we would think it would be.
Yeah, and I think there's some people who point to things that happened on the field, but I've always said you have to separate this kind of conversation from the, but you have to separate the front office from the field in this conversation, because Ali Marmol and the players are going to have a different mindset.
They're going to try, but they don't know.
Exactly.
Like when we worked with DeMarco Farr, and when the Rams came here, they were 7-9, and then the second year they were 6-10. Third year they were 5-11. The fourth year they were 4-12. And DeMarco would listen to me on the radio, and he'd say, I don't know why you hate us, because he said, I thought we were, after his career was over, he said, I thought we were good. I didn't know that we sucked. And I got really mad at you because you were telling people that we sucked. Well, you did, but players don't know that.
Yeah.
Players never think that their team sucks. And so I think that's one of the issues too, is that you're never going to get a group of players convinced that they aren't a good team.
DeMarco didn't know that they weren't good when they went 4-12.
No,
he just thought everybody else in the NFL is just that good.
He thought they were right there, and especially because they did have a good defense, and then the same defense comes back in '99, kills it. They build the offense, and boom, they wound up being pretty good.
Neilio says, to your point about them being, why wouldn't they want Mo to come back? Because Mo isn't doing anything to make this team prosper. We'd be backing into the playoffs, not putting a serious roster together for a real push, or a pitching staff that says we're serious.
How do you know?
I mean, based off the evidence he has in front of him right now, I don't disagree with him that it's not a very.
So is that the way
they would definitionally be backing into the playoffs? It's not a serious playoff. It's not a serious roster based on the pitching, and then also to his point, it's not a serious roster because of the pitching.
Tell me about the seriousness of the Milwaukee Brewers, please. What moves that they made that made you think that they're going to be what they are right now, best record in baseball? What moves did the Brewers make that made you think, wow, they're really going for it?
I mean,
was it Caleb Durbin when they traded Devin Williams and got Caleb Durbin? Was it last year when they traded Corbin Burns? Was it this year when they made the trade for Vaughn, giving up Savali, who had asked for a trade? Did you really think, okay, well, they're getting a guy that the White Sox have in the minors. They're really going for it. I don't think so. Was it when they got Joey Ortiz for Burns? I don't think so. Was it when they claimed the guy off waivers from the Rockies to become one of their best players? Did that make you think, oh, they're really going for it? I don't think so. What moves? Let's talk about this. What moves did the Brewers make that you thought, okay, they're really going for it now? That made you think they were going to be great?
I mean, adding.
Come on, give me one.
Pushing up Mizrowski immediately through the season.
Okay, they called up so the Pirates just called up Bubba Chandler. So are they going for it?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
How'd they get I mean, they made the trade for Priester. That's obviously been really big. But he wasn't.
Who thought they were going for it? He was traded for Quinn.
I mean, he's a guy who literally had 7 wins coming into last season. Yeah. So you didn't expect him to be 11 win. Willie Adames did leave.
Topher Rock says Willie Adames left as a free agent after last season. He's gone now. Joey Ortiz was acquired for Burns. So then Willie Adames doesn't apply here.
Kelly Duncan, they have great pitching.
Traded for Contreras. That was that was the same offseason that the Cardinals got Wilson Contreras. That was 3 years ago.
Cricklew said it's because of the coaching.
Well, what they do? They promoted their bench coach just like the Cardinals did. Right? When Council left, Pat Murphy was their bench coach. They did the exact damn thing that the Cardinals did when they promoted Ollie Marmol. So what makes them be going for it when they promote Pat Murphy that the Cardinals aren't when they hire Ollie?
I am not the expert on the Brewers putting things together and making some great moves this year, but somebody who has talked a lot about the Brewers making some good moves is joining us right now.
The great Bernard J. Miklasz is with us now, as he is every Friday here on the Randy Karraker Show on STL Sports Central, presented by DraftKings, where the crown is yours. Bernard J., good morning.
Hey,
how you doing?
Good to be with you guys as always. By the way, I'm sorry I crashed your show the other day.
Oh, that was awesome.
That was fun.
No, I mean, I come in there and start hollering about watching a Cowboys documentary, not realizing you're actually doing your live show.
Oh,
so
no, we got some stuff. No, that was awesome. We love that. So, no, it's so, Bernie, I think sometimes, and I'm not, number one, I don't think the Cardinals are good. I don't think the Cardinals are going to make the playoffs. But there's this, and I don't know if you just heard what we were talking about.
Yeah.
But the complaints about John Mozeliak not going for it, just because it doesn't appear you're going for it, doesn't mean that your team is going to be bad. I ask people to make their case for what the Brewers did, that at the time they said, oh man, they're really going for it. Brewers haven't made a single move where you say they're going for it. They're very smart. They do a great job of evaluating talent. They're very well coached, but I don't think anybody came into the season saying, man, the Brewers are a favorite because of what they did during the offseason.
I'm with you 100%. You know, I continue to be befuddled locally, by this feeling out there. And I'm not saying like 80% of Cardinals fans or even half of Cardinals fans see it this way, but often the discussion around town is about, well, the Cardinals need to go out and spend some money. They need to go out and get some great players, spend some money, or they got to, like you just said, they got to go for it. They got to go for it. And there are times to spend money and there are times to, quote, go for it, but they're missing the entire damn point. The Brewers don't go for it. The Brewers are incredibly smart and they find talent. They identify and locate and get high value talent for low prices. They also tap into the international market, which the Cardinals don't. They also they find players who will fill a specific need, even if they are not superstar players. And we get these players, even their fan base probably shrugs. Like, why'd they get that guy? Well, because Matt Arnold and that group, they know their team very, very well, and they can see what skills they can apply to their roster. And so their tiny, small moves become much bigger moves in the context that it makes their team a lot stronger. I still don't get it. I still do not get it, why there is such an obsession with payroll and like going for it by like making these huge moves. The Cardinals' problem, and I'm sorry to be cruel because John Mozeliak was very, very good for a long time. The Cardinals became a dumb organization. At the same time, the Brewers were becoming, in my opinion, the smartest organization in baseball. Why, people say, well, the Cubs, the Cardinals ought to spend more money. They ought to do this, they ought to do that. The Chicago Cubs spend a hell of a lot more money than Milwaukee. And by the way, the Cardinals spend a hell of a lot more money than Milwaukee. And the Cubs are viewed as a team that, quote, goes for it. They went out and got Kyle Tucker. So if it's all about going for it and it's all about spending money, then explain something to me. All you people that advocate that. Tell me how in the hell the Brewers have kicked the asses of the Cubs and the Cardinals since 2018. They've won more regular season games, more postseason games, more division titles, made the playoffs more times than both of those teams. So why is there such a disconnect of intelligence? I don't understand it.
And Bernie, I think they just, I don't know if they got dumb or if they just quit learning, and it was of their own choice because and I've used this before. So Matt Arnold has been with the Brewers for 10 years. He got there and had been with Tampa Bay before. From the time the Cardinals hired Tony La Russa in 1996 until they hired Chaim Bloom as a consultant in 2024, they didn't bring another person from another major league organization with a voice into their organization in that entire time. Nobody that could say, here's why the Cleveland Guardians / Indians have passed you up. Here's why the Seattle Mariners have such good pitching. Here's why the Dodgers have such good performance. They refused to recognize that they were being passed up. They kept promoting from within, or thinking, oh, well, let's get a guy from petstore.com, or let's get a guy that's in the financial industry in Chicago because he sent us, and we'll teach him. He sent us an email. So we'll bring, speaking of Gersh here, we'll teach him how it's done. And the Cardinals just totally got lapped by everybody in baseball because they never learned, at least from my observation, that other teams were passing them up.
They failed. They had the advantage over a lot of front offices for a long time. Jeff Luhnow had a lot to do with that, but Mo was also, I think, more on top of things back then too, as far as how the game was changing. They squandered that. They not only squandered, and the Cardinals were at the forefront. They were in the early phase of analytics because that's something Bill DeWitt Jr. wanted, and that's why he hired Luhnow. So the Cardinals had all those things that were working to their advantage, and they were an industry leader in a lot of areas. Well, they assumed that model would hold up, and hey, we're the Cardinals. Look at all we've won. We know what we're doing. We're fine. And they never evolved. They never updated. They not only gave up their advantage within the industry, they lost it in a way where they became they got way behind in the industry and a lot of these things that teams with lower payrolls and teams with smarter front offices or more forward-thinking front offices have used to get ahead of the Cardinals. And I've used this analogy before, and I apologize if people that are watching or listening, have heard me say this a few times, but it's the best analogy I can think of. Do we all remember when BlackBerry was everything?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. BlackBerry was it. BlackBerry. I mean, I had a BlackBerry in my hand for years, and they owned that part of technology, and I was reading stories about this because I was fascinated. BlackBerry just dominated. I mean, absolutely dominated. They had a product that no one else had, and it was better, and they made it better, and so on. And the people that run Apple are pretty damn smart, and they said, well, wait a minute. We can do better than that. The BlackBerry is nice, but we can do better than that. Look at all the money these people are making. Look at the success of the BlackBerry. Well, hell, let's move in there. We'll knock them out of the way. And that's exactly what happened. And I was reading it. And by the way, there's a documentary about this somewhere out there. The BlackBerry people were in denial for years when Apple and the iPhone and all that started to come on. They were like, no, man, we invented this, and this has been the industry leader for years and years. We know what we're doing. The BlackBerry's great. People love the BlackBerry. We don't need to react to what Apple's doing. Well, how'd that turn out?
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Yeah, you're exactly right.
And I've said, like, I've written it and said, the Cardinals basically are BlackBerry.
Yeah,
they were the industry leader, and they lost their advantage out of complacency and hubris and assuming that they'll always dominate, failing to recognize that you must evolve and you must be aware of what your competition is doing.
Yep. And one other thing here, Bernie, that I want to bring up, and we'll get some chats in here too. But if you think about where the Cardinal minor league organization was last year, these are names from the 2012 Cardinal organization, minor league staffs. Pop Warner, we knew about him. He's still here. Blaze Ilsley was a renowned pitching coach. Mark Badaska, a renowned hitting coach at AAA. In Springfield, you had Mike Schilt, Brian Eversgerd, and Philip Wellman was the hitting coach. In Palm Beach A-ball, Dennis Martinez was your pitching coach, and Jeff Albert was your hitting coach. At Quad Cities, You had Luis Aguayo, who never really panned out, but they really liked him early. Batavia, Dan Billardello, Dernier Orozco, and Roger Lafrancois. The Cardinals really liked that group. Then at Johnson City, you had Ali Marmol. He was on that staff. You had Steve Turco. You had Tim Levesque. Your field, here's where you really lost it. Mark DeJong was your field coordinator. Dyer Miller was your pitching coordinator. Derek May was your hitting coordinator. Brent Strom, who won a couple of World Series as a pitching coach for the Astros, was your pitching instructor. Galen Pitts was a special assistant to player development. Keith Joint was in the organization. And you had Mark DeJong, who was your overall field coordinator. I don't know if I mentioned that name, but you had people that were renowned minor league instructors. And I couldn't tell you now one single renowned minor league instructor that the Cardinals have in the system.
No, and they're, Bloom and Rob Cerfolio have hired some really smart guys who are well regarded within the industry, like Matt Pierpont, their pitching coordinator, for example. And Larry Day is brilliant.
Right.
So the Cardinals are getting it back, but they're getting that aspect back. They're replenishing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, your point is right. Bill DeWitt and John Mozeliak sort of betrayed the franchise heritage, which was teaching, developing, instructing, giving these prospects expertise from the people that were the best in the industry, helping to get them ready for Major League Baseball. Jose Akendo, part of that group as well.
Yeah.
No, so you're absolutely right. And then the other thing, I was talking to Bill DeWitt one time, and he told me one of the things he regrets. And this is really important too, even though these were behind the scenes types. When Jeff Luhnow left to become the Houston Astros general manager, he asked Bill DeWitt if he could take, because Luhnow had built this tremendous staff inside the building, analytics and research and development and all that stuff. And the Cardinals became very, very good at that. And he asked DeWitt if he could take, like 5 or 6 guys with him to Houston, and Bill DeWitt said, "No, I don't think that's right that you do that." But I think Bill DeWitt maybe relented and let Jeff Luhnow take, say, 4 guys.
Yeah. Mike Elias was in that group.
Yeah. A bunch of them, 4 or 5 guys, 6 guys. And DeWitt told me he regretted that because they lost a tremendous amount of that new age brain power from that baseball operation, and they never really got that back. Right. They're going to get it back now with Chaim Bloom. But no, it isn't that they just lost Luhnow, and Luhnow was outstanding at what he did. It's that he was allowed to take a lot of great people with him. Yeah. And so, that was a big blow to the Cardinals in terms of their inability to keep ahead of the industry standards or to even match the industry standards. That's when they started to fall behind, and it became a pretty dramatic fall.
Yeah. And one other thing, and Matthew, I know has a question, but I just want to go back to the minor league staff because Ali told me, and this makes all the sense in the world. He said, when I was in the minor leagues, he was at high A. He said, Dan Billardello would get a kid. He'd hand him off to me, and the kid knew exactly what I wanted because that was part of the organization. I would hand a guy to Schilt at AA, and that kid would be prepared for Schilt because we all were on the same page in regards to how we were going to play the game. So Schilt knew what he was getting. Schilt gets a guy ready for AAA, and Pop Warner knows what he's getting when he's the AAA manager. And I don't think that they have that level of organization or communication. At least they didn't. I should say that this is till the end of last year. I do think that many of these issues have been fixed by Chaim Bloom being in charge, but there were 3 or 4 years there, Bernie, where I don't think that I know that there wasn't communication within that system, and they just kind of let guys flounder and move up, and there really wasn't a Cardinal way anymore.
No, that's exactly right. Well said. And they and Bloom and Cerfolio and Larry Day, they are getting it back together to where the entire baseball operation from the major leagues on down is synchronized, and it's totally aligned, and everyone knows what the other one is doing, and there is great collaboration. And to your point, that had been missing for way too long. It was all helter-skelter, willy-nilly, no real firm, coherent plan. it was just kind of an ad hoc thing that it really, frankly, was really ridiculous. And that's why they, more than anything, that's one of the reasons why they, failed to developing failed to develop good young starting pitching, which was a catastrophic failure, because that was one of the things that for a long time they did better than just about anybody.
And I know we're talking about the Brewers, and I just want to use them as an example really quickly, because a lot of the chat's still talking about it. To me, like, look at what the team's doing this year, and you look at a Sal Frelick who's having success. He's a guy who had 300 at bats at Double-A. They brought him up, and he hit below, while providing really good defense, gold glove level defense. He hit below 100 in the OPS plus, but they kept him up. They didn't send him back down and screw with his timing. Same thing with Bryce Terang. He's a guy who this year is finally becoming an above average hitter, but his first 2 years in Major League Baseball, he's a below average hitter. But there's no back and forth between the AAA and Major League Baseball for a guy like Bryce Terang. They let him develop and figure things out. Even a guy like Jackson Churio, as we talk about JJ Weatherholt, I'm not saying it's a 1-for-1. His is different because he played with his team in the Dominican leagues and things like that. But he had 21 at bats in AAA before the Brewers said, all right. And he wasn't even blowing the doors off in those 21 at bats. But the Brewers said, this is a player who's ready. And that's something interesting to me. And heck, let's look at Chad Patrick this year, who only had 6 starts and almost a 5 ERA in the minors before they said, no, he's ready. Here's what we have. And he's been a huge reason. To that point, the Cardinals could have pulled the trigger on a guy like Michael McGreevy early this year. And Bernie, you wrote about this early this week. Had they pulled the trigger on Michael McGreevy and they got a full season of what we've seen from McGreevy this year, they're in the playoff discussion. And so
they're right in there. Yeah. I mean, because McGreevy,
an example of a lack of proactivity, a lack of moves from the Cardinals, a lack of consistency in what your organizational plan is. And that's why a team like the Brewers have been able to take so many steps without spending the money. And you have part for part examples right there of where the Brewers have succeeded with the players and the Cardinals have failed.
Yeah.
What I love about the Brewers, because I admire intelligence and people that are just smarter to get an advantage over people with more resources, and the Brewers do that now better than anybody. It's that this gets back to what Randy was saying. The Brewers don't care about making a splash. You always say, like, there's all these teams, they feel like they have to make a splash. The Brewers, they're like, we don't need to make a splash. We got a lot of good lakes around here. We'll go jump in the lake and swim. We don't need to make a splash on a trade market. We're not here to steal headlines. We're here to supplement our talent, and we're here to find players that we've identified as talent. They're not going to be all-stars. They're not going to be Hall of Famers, but they are going to help us fill a particular need and give us more options and more depth, and we will have many more different ways to beat you. That's what they do. They don't care about a splash. They see it as a big puzzle, and all they want to do is put the puzzle together and recognize where each piece has to go. And they get it. Listen, they're not perfect, because nobody is, but they just have a much better understanding of how to build a roster and how to supplement a roster in a way that every single year now, since 2017, 2018, the national media falls asleep on the Brewers, fell asleep on them again this year, because they're not making a splash. They're not going out there making these big moves. They're not getting attention. Matt Arnold's not talking to, he's not on MLB Network every other day, trying to be Jim Bowden or something. They just want to do their job, and they're smarter than everybody else, and they know it. They won't say it, but they know it. I think they just kind of laugh at everybody else that's like, oh boy, did you see that team? Look at, I mean, all the people that were getting the hosannas at this recent trade deadline, because they made moves that had big names involved. How's that working out for the Mets, for example? How's that working out so far?
Yeah, not great.
Yeah, but everybody wants to give these A grades, and that's a B plus. That's a failure. Brewers were losers because they didn't make a big splash. How are they losers? They're turning the industry upside down. There's no guarantee they're going to win in the postseason, but it's not because they have $113 million payroll. It's because, more than anything, postseasons are very random. And if you just have 2 big games with runners in scoring position, you're probably gone.
They're kind of like Bernie. They're like the new A's, aren't they? The A's that got the movie made after them. That's what the Brewers are now.
Yeah, I think they are, and I'm just utterly fascinated by them because I just can't believe the body of work and how they do this every single year. And we those of us on the outside never learn. I mean, this was the year where even I'm going to admit it, man. I'm not going to be a phony. Even this year, I said it. I said, well, I think the Magic's probably just about running out for the Brewers. Maybe their time is up. You just assume it's going to happen because, again, you have The Athletic, you have MLB Network, you have all these really good work being done. But in terms of, people just constantly saying, well, the Brewers, man, they're really smart. Boy, that's been a nice story, but they can't keep doing this, and just kind of writing them off anew every single year. And when are we ever going to learn that you can win if you're smart and you know how to put a roster together? When do we finally learn that? When do fans learn that? Those who are obsessed with payroll and making a splash.
I think
the Cardinals I thought Goldschmidt was a big splash. I thought Arenado was a big splash. How'd that work out?
Yeah, and to that point, when we get to the postseason, and I don't know about the Phillies now without having Zach Wheeler, but the Dodgers are still going to be prohibitive favorites because of their stars. But the Dodgers are playing in a different league. I know it's the National League, but the Dodgers are playing in a different league than anybody else because they can go out and buy all these superstars. And at the end of the day, they've killed a fly with a sledgehammer with their $900 million payroll.
That's well put.
So they are but compare the Dodgers even to the Padres. I think a Padres Brewers series would be really interesting. I think a Brewers Phillies without the Phillies having Zach Wheeler is a really interesting series. I think there's the Dodgers when we get to the playoffs, Dodgers and everybody else.
Yeah, because the Dodgers, we saw it last year. Like, for example, the Dodgers during the regular season, they had a below average starting rotation, and they had a lot of injuries, and they had injuries in the bullpen. But the Dodgers, this is where the financial war chest gives them an advantage because they're able to go out and spend money to accumulate depth, and they may not even need it until August or something, or they may not. It may not even come into play until the postseason. They can go out and make sure they have enough at every position, even if it takes some creativity about how you keep everyone that you want to keep on the 40-man roster. But they're able to buy the best type, the most expensive type of insurance. And yes, that insurance does make a difference when it comes to postseason baseball. But the people that stupidly sit there all the time and say, well, what do the Brewers won? They're missing the whole story. The Brewers should not be kicking the asses of the Chicago Cubs and the St. Louis Cardinals, but they continue to do it every year just about. And one of these years, the Brewers will break through in the postseason. It could be this year. And I would remind all the Cardinals fans who tell me all the time, oh, you always talk about the Brewers. What have they won in the postseason? It took Tony La Russa and Walt Jocketty didn't win their first pennant until their 9th season in St. Louis. And they didn't win their first World Series until their 11th season in St. Louis. But yet here, because people get tired of me and others talking about how great the Brewers are, they throw the Brewers in our faces as if they're making a great point. What the hell point are they making? The Cardinals have, the Cardinals since 2017 have outspent the Brewers. I redid the numbers to include this year. They've outspent the Brewers by nearly $400 million, and the Cardinals continue to chase.
Incredible. Yeah.
By the way, and they can't even remember their own history about how long it took TLR to win his first pennant.
Yeah, this is not a Randy Karraker thought. I stole it. Somebody on MLB Network Radio. It was either Spielberg's or CJ Nitkowski said it. But last week the Dodgers had lost 4 in a row, including getting swept by the Angels before they go in to play San Diego, and everybody said, "Oh, this might be it for the Padres. Might be ready." And then the Dodgers go in and sweep the Padres. And somebody mentioned after the weekend, after the Dodgers sweep, they said they're probably just bored. And they decide, okay, well, the Padres present a challenge, so let's step it up against them. now, since they swept the Padres, the Dodgers swept with the Rockies, and they play the Padres again this weekend. I would not be at all surprised if the Dodgers are bored, unless they're playing a team that is a rival or threatens them. And I wouldn't be surprised if they sweep the Padres again this weekend. I think they're that good that they can get bored. Remember how we kind of thought that about the Greatest Show on Turf at times? Greatest Show on Turf could have won games by 30, but I think they were bored and they won games by 7. They made it exciting. And I kind of think that might be where the Dodgers are right now. They're so good that they just get bored, and they play well only when they have to.
I think you're right about that. I wasn't able to watch any of that series last weekend. I am definitely going to try to stay up. I assume a couple of those are night games to watch those 3 games in San Diego, because the Padres at home, that'll be a lot of fun. That's a colorful rivalry. Yep.
Yeah.
The big thing I already mentioned was some of the stats you threw out about Michael McGreevy, but obviously some stats that aren't so great have been Jordan Walker, and I like how you threw out because we're talking about the short little blip over the last 2 weeks where he's hitting 168, but you gave a really good perspective here and just looking at essentially the last 8 months of regular season ball for Jordan Walker, and when is he an above or below average hitter? And you pointed out only 2 months in the last 8 where he's an above average hitter. So what are your thoughts about Walker's current slide, and the fact that if you look at going back to the All-Star break, it is 268 with a just under 700 OPS.
We know what he's capable of doing because he actually did, I think, pretty solid job, a nice job in 2023 as a just turned 21 years old. Those numbers in 2023 were fine, and the Cardinals wanted him to hit the ball in the air more, and I understand that. I didn't think the Cardinals were wrong to advise him to do that, but it just seems like it's been one thing after another about what he needs to work on, or changing his batting stance, changing this, changing that. And I know that they're trying to make him better. And I know Brant Brown in particular is a really smart guy, and he's got some good ideas. And, guys like Gorman and Jordan Walker have really, really taken on, grabbed on to Brant Brown because they think he's really smart. The thing, see, Nolan Gorman has always been inconsistent, but the thing about Nolan Gorman is that for all of his times where he has looked lost in the plate, this is his 4th major league season. And if you go just look at Baseball Reference, I mean, for all of his struggles, he's an above average major league hitter for his entire career. I'm not saying he's like, wow, look at that, but he's about he's about 5% above average. And he's got roughly about a 435 slugging percentage. And he's got about a 440 slugging percentage against right-handed hitters. So even when it just looks so bad for him, the overall body of work tells you that there's still a lot there. And I think, and the only reason I'm talking about Nolan Gorman is I want to contrast him to Walker. Nolan Gorman, and I still think it sort of is under-publicized, frankly. I think Nolan Gorman, since late May, either ranks 1st, 2nd, or 3rd among Cardinals hitters in on-base percentage, slugging percentage, OPS, weighted runs created plus, walk rate, home runs. He every category, and even batting average, he's like 4th or 5th. He's been one of their best hitters, really for going on 2.5 months now, and he's made real progress. And he's improved a lot of his swing stuff too. He doesn't chase as much. There's not as much swing and miss. He's getting the ball to left center more, which is something Brant Brown wants him to do. His walk rate is phenomenal. And when you see a guy who has had that grip it and rip it style, all of a sudden be the guy that leads your team in walk rate, and he's walking all the time, that's all you need to know to be shown and to believe that, yes, this progress is real. But that's what's frustrating to me about Walker, because look, I believe in his talent. I'm not saying get rid of him or anything like that, but there's just with Gordon, there's at least been a pattern where you can expect some downtimes, but you'll know that he'll bounce back from it. With Walker, it's just I used this phrase earlier in the segment. It's just helter skelter. he puts a couple 3 weeks together and you're like, wow, look, he really does look better. He really is figuring it out. Look at that open stance. That really suits him well. And then you figure, okay, he's on his way. He's going to start to gain traction. And then it just totally falls apart again. It just falls apart. And it's like he's back to square one.
And Bernie, I made this point before you came on. I kind of think that the move for the Cardinals now, and Chaim Bloom can do this, but because Mo has let players kind of just fade off, like Dylan Carlson, I think being the perfect example. He said, I'll trade him out of my cold dead hands. And then he loses all of his value. And I think the time to trade a guy like Jordan Walker is while he still has value. And I think sometimes a trade has to hurt, but I think the Cardinals have gone down the line with a lot of young players here that never turned out. And I think I would come down on the side of, you know what, I'll take the chance of Jordan Walker becoming a star elsewhere if I can get something for him, because while it might happen somewhere else, it doesn't appear as if it's going to happen here.
Randy, I've just got conflicted feelings about that. And I don't disagree with you. I'm just not there yet, if that makes sense.
That's good. That's a good thing, actually.
I just have conflicting feelings about it because I get exasperated with him. And, at some point he's going to have to show that, he'll start to tap into that upside and do it for, 3 or 4 months at a time. And, let's face it, his defense has relapsed again too. And I think we were all really happy with his defense and proud of his defense that he made such a strong effort and John Jay helped him. But then the problem is when Jordan Walker isn't hitting, it's a classic example of he sort of takes his problems out to right field with him.
Yeah.
And he just loses confidence. Listen, this is a cop-out answer, and I'm not trying to be, because me, man, I'll give my opinion if I strongly believe in it, and I'll stick with it. But with Walker, I just don't know that it'll ever work here because he's had catastrophic drops in confidence. And I hate to use the fresh start cliche, but he looks like a guy that if he goes somewhere else, he probably can clear his mind a lot more. And he's going to have new voices talking to him, instructing him, things like that. And maybe not that much is expected of him because that team will have some established star players. And he can just sort of do his thing without worrying about, well, this guy's he's got to become our franchise player type thing. And so that they trade him, I think my fear is it'll click in part because there won't be as much pressure on him at the next stop. And then of course the Cardinals then will regret the trade because he'll blossom elsewhere.
Yeah.
I worry about that.
There's no doubt that there's a gamble. There's a gamble in trading him and there's a gamble in keeping him.
Right. And I have an open mind about it. And I think I said this in one of my Redbird reviews recently. We need to know what the offers would be. And of course, we're not going to know what the offers would be. And sometimes the offers are not true and people report them as offers, like the nonsense about, they could have gotten Juan Soto for Dylan Carlson. No, they couldn't have. That was not going to happen. If they were talking about a huge trade at the time with them involving a lot of different players, Carlson might have been in the package. But this idea that they could have flipped him straight up for Juan Soto, no. I mean, you people need to just, people who still say that, put down the bath salts, man. You have no idea what, you're living in a different world. But anyway, I just don't know. If Chaim Bloom gets an offer he can't refuse, if it's a great offer for a Jordan Walker, then I would say take it. Knowing what the risks are, take it. But we just can't say that. But to your point, the more that they wait, if Walker bombs out the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season and he's not even in the lineup regularly anymore, what's his trade value going to be next year?
Yeah.
It's going to go down, right?
Yeah.
It's tough.
Bernie, Bernie, yes. A couple days ago, you mentioned earlier at the top of the show, you were coming in and you were mentioning the Dallas Cowboys documentary on Netflix. And there's been a lot of craziness this, but one of my favorite things on the documentary is we've gotten to see a little bit of old school Bernie Miklasz up on the Netflix screens. There he is, old school Bernie. How about that? That's been
look at that hair.
Glorious.
How's that for a head of hair, huh?
It's incredible.
That was February 25th, 1989. That was the infamous night where Jerry Jones, who nobody knew who he was introduced as the new owner of the Dallas Cowboys, and that was the press conference. And we're all sitting there. You can see me looking like, what planet is this guy from? Because he was talking about one of us asked him about, well, what's your involvement going to be? Because and he says, I will be involved with the cleats. He said, I'll be involved in the socks and jocks.
Oh my God.
I'll be involved with this. I'll be involved with that. He named everything. He even looked at the legendary Tex Schramm, and I'll never forget that. And he told Tex Schramm the first night that he's the owner of the Cowboys, he looks at the legendary, iconic Tex Schramm, the man who built America's team. And he says, I want his job.
Oh my God.
And I'll tell you a story about that if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
Tex Schramm knew exactly what he was in for, and he knew exactly that Jerry Jones would, in fact, be the owner, the general manager, running everything, getting in the middle of everything. And Tex Schramm said to the beat writers, it's a different time and different place. I don't think this kind of thing happens anymore. But Tex Schramm said, fellas, I don't ask you guys for much, but after all that, what we just watched, when you get your stories done, come on back to the office, because not only do I need a few drinks, I need some people to drink with, And so we sat there with Tex Schramm until like 3 a.m, drinking with him, as he's like basically having a mental, like a nervous breakdown, knowing that he was doomed. Right. Mm-hmm. And but that was just what a crazy night. Jimmy Johnson's worth I'm bringing Jimmy Johnson here. He's worth 5 first-round draft picks. He's worth 5 Heisman Trophy winners. So, and he was, until Jerry Jones wanted Jimmy Johnson to get out of the way, because Jerry Jones wanted to be the general manager of the Cowboys, and he got tired of Jimmy getting all the credit. And so he broke up a great thing, and Jerry Jones makes a lot of money, but other than that, he's kind of a joke.
The stories didn't surprise me, but one of the things that did jump out, they were talking about the fixer. And in this run up of talking about the fixer and everything, there was a video of Emmitt Smith on the side of the road after getting in an accident, and Jerry Jones is there. And Emmitt Smith gets into a car with Jerry, and they drive away from the accident, and you see the fixer dealing with the paperwork with the police. And these things don't surprise me with the Dallas Cowboys. I've heard those kind of stories. But for you as a reporter, I kind of want to know, when it came to all the things and all the extracurriculars around there, what was it like as a reporter, considering the Cowboys had built such a infrastructure around things like the police reports and the arrests? Oh, yeah. And what was it like as a reporter finding these things out?
They had a former FBI man, and really, I think he's still with them, although semi-retired, Larry Wansley. A brilliant guy. Like in fact, Larry Wansley was such a great guy when it came to security and taking care of problems before anyone knew that they were problems. Like, he would get hired by these rock and roll bands. He was hired by Whitney Houston when she was at the top of the world to like provide security on her tour. So this is a guy that was so well known for being a fixer that people in other segments of entertainment were saying, we got to bring him in, pay him whatever it takes, because, we're going to mess some things up, and we have to make sure it never gets out. So, and I'm not saying Larry Wansley did anything wrong. Larry Wansley he had a network of people. He was respected from coast to coast. He had FBI friends of his everywhere. And it wasn't just Larry Wansley. They had a security apparatus that was unbelievable. I mean, I don't think the United States Secret Service protected any president as the type of protection all those Cowboys players got and Jerry Jones got. Because Jerry, I think everybody knows this, so I'm not breaking any comment. Jerry does some tomcatting. I don't know if he does it anymore, but you remember some of those photos on the internet
Mhm.
Had been caught in some indelicate situations, shall we say. But very little that ever makes it to the public light. And we would just laugh at it. We would marvel at it. We'd hear stories, we'd check on them, we'd get stonewalled. And then later on, we found out that we were on the right scent and we, could have had the story, but they knew how to stonewall it just to get us off the story, not because we were wimps, but because they just knew how to make things disappear, and they knew how to get everybody even remotely involved to just shut up and never mention it again.
So do you think that in this documentary, which apparently, obviously the producers got a tremendous amount of access, I wonder if we will learn a lot of negative stuff about Jerry Jones specifically. Obviously, they're showing some of the stuff about players. My guess is that some of those things that you just mentioned about Jerry Jones, we won't see in the doc.
Probably not. Although I got to be honest with you, and I'm only like 3 episodes in. Like, I thought it would be more sanitized than it is, and I'm not saying they're showing all the dirt. They're not, but there's some things here and there that are leaking out a little bit. So we'll see. But do I think they'll go entirely full disclosure on it? No, they won't, because Jerry's got when he became the owner of the Cowboys, I was with him, and I've told this story. And we were down in New Orleans, and me and Gary Myers were out having dinner, and then we ran into Jerry and his group. And Jerry said, "Well, you got to come over here and have a drink with us. We'll celebrate." And so people say, "Well, you shouldn't do that." The hell we shouldn't do that, because one of the things you're doing, you're building a relationship. It's okay to socialize a little, because that's how you break the ice. So we had about 2 or 3 drinks with Jerry, and we were to go back to the hotel. And then Jerry, all of a sudden, there's a disturbance to my left or my right, because I was talking to somebody else, and Jerry had made an inappropriate gesture, or an inappropriate an employee of the place walked by, and he did something inappropriate. And this is a famous place in New Orleans, and within like 5 seconds, there's like 8 guys who look like they could just basically just rip everybody's limb from limb. I mean, huge, nasty looking guys. And, "Sir, you have to leave. We can't tolerate that, blah, blah, blah." And so he started cranking up the whole, "You don't know who I am. I'm Jerry Jones. I own the Dallas Cowboys. I own the Dallas Cowboys. You're not throwing me out of here." That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. He said, "Sir, we can either do this nicely, or you can make it something ugly, but you have to leave." And so they're leading him out, and he's screaming at him, "I own the Dallas Cowboys. I own the Dallas Cowboys." It's just, and I'm like, oh my goodness. So Stephen Jones couldn't get him to shut up, right? So I go up to Jerry, and this is my policy. I know some people, because they don't like me, they'll say, "Well, that was unethical." No, it's not. I went up to him and I said, Jerry, listen to me. Look at me. I'm not working right now. I'm off duty. Okay. And I'm off duty, and all I've seen is you're having a disagreement with the staff of this place. And people have disagreements in restaurants all the time. You've done nothing wrong right now. You haven't. So I'm off duty. Okay. But Jerry, if you get arrested here and you're real close, I have to go to work.
Punch the clock in. Yeah.
I have to go to work, and it's going to be. So you remember that photo of you and Jimmy Johnson taken at the restaurant the night before you were announced as the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, and everyone in town was trying to find you and Jimmy. And Ivan Maisel, who was my good friend and colleague at the Morning News, he called me that night. He said, "Me and Meg," that was his future wife, so we went into this restaurant. I'm telling you, everybody was looking for those two the night before. Mm-hmm. And so Ivan calls me at the office at the Dallas Morning News, and he says, "Listen, it's a Friday night. There's no editors around probably. You got to get a photographer over here ASAP. I mean, ASAP." Because I walked in, and Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson are sitting at Mia's. And as soon as Jimmy Johnson saw me, because Jimmy knew Ivan Maisel from college football, I don't know if I can cuss or not on here. What's our policy? Okay.
Yeah, we're good with that.
Jimmy saw Ivan and he looked up and he went, "Oh shit," because he knew that they were caught in the act. And so I was screaming at editors, "You got to get a photographer over there. You got to get a photographer over there." They got the photographer over there on time. And if you go in the documentary in the first episode, you'll see the photo. And they snapped the photo. Those two caught in the act, scheming to overthrow Tom Landry, basically. And it was on page 1A of the Dallas Morning News. And it's one of the most famous photos in the history of that newspaper, or any newspaper in terms of sports. But anyway, I had to tell that because that leads to go back to New Orleans. So I said, "Jerry, I'm off the clock now. I'm not working. I'm off duty. And the last thing I want to do is go to work. But if you get arrested, I have to go to work, and I will go to work, and I will write the story, and I will write all the details." And do you remember that photo with you and Jimmy? You remember Mia's and how that was like splashed all over 1A? I said, "Do you really want?" I said, "Jerry, I would love to have a big, huge scoop on 1A at the Dallas Morning News, and I'll do it. But right now, nothing's happened yet. But I just want you to know what's up. Do you want me to go to work, Jerry?" And that sobered him up, literally and figuratively. God. And so he end of crisis.
That's amazing.
I know.
Also amazing that college football starts this weekend. When we talk next week at this time, we'll be reviewing Missouri, hopefully a win against Central Arkansas. But man, college football's here.
You know, the game Saturday, first of all, the Iowa State Kansas State game's great. They're rivals, and and Anthony Beck's son, Rocco Beck, is a hell of a quarterback, and I can't wait to watch that game. That's going to be really good. And then later on, I think that's a night game. I haven't checked the time, but Kurt Warner's son starts for Fresno State at quarterback.
That's right, yeah,
playing Kansas. So you got son of Kurt playing quarterback, and Kansas will be Mizzou's next opponent after the opening this opening weekend. And Kansas is, I think, going to be a good team this year. So there's actually some stuff to watch, stuff that I think is pretty good Saturday.
Yeah, that's a great point. I had forgotten about EJ. He started at Temple, then he went to Rice last year, and he had a good year for them. And he's just kind of bouncing around. And now, like you said, he's at Fresno State, and that game is at KU. It's a 5:30 game on Fox. So Iowa State, K-State at 11 in the morning on ESPN, and then Fresno State at Kansas on Fox at 5:30 tomorrow night. So yeah, it'll be a great day.
And you know what I did, Randy? See, I'm helping you out and helping us all out because we love DraftKings. I went on DraftKings Pick 6 and I looked up. I said, "Well, I want to see if Kurt's son. I'm going to see what the line is, like the more or less for yards passing." So I might have to actually play Kurt Warner's son.
That's a great
play.
That's a good idea.
I like that.
Yeah.
So we will work on that.
Yeah.
Well, enjoy the weekend and have fun. You're the best. It's always the most entertaining heck, we've gone for almost an hour.
I know
of my week, but it's great.
But Randy, you should know. I think Rock knows this too. He knows me pretty well. But I got a million stories. So the good news is I got a million stories. The bad news is a lot of those stories take a long time to tell.
They're awesome. Anyway, we love it.
All right, you guys. I love you guys. You take care.
Love you too, Bernard. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Bernie. Have a good one.
And as Bernie mentioned, with DraftKings, nothing beats relaxing on a hot summer day or night than watching baseball. And now the weather is turning a little bit, and we're going to have some football too. But all you need to do is go to DraftKings Pick 6. And, that Isaac Collins for Milwaukee, I like him tonight. 1.5 hits plus runs plus RBIs against the San Francisco Giants. So I'm going to go Collins at home or on the road or at home against San Francisco. To go plus 1.5 hits plus runs plus RBIs. And then I am going to go with Miles Michaelis in Tampa to have more than 3.5 strikeouts.
Randy, okay. All right.
More than 3.5 strikeouts for Miles against Tampa tonight. And so that's where I'm starting. And you know what? I might throw a third one into the mix here because I kind of like Bryce Harper at home plus 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs against the Washington Nationals. So I'm going to play Harper too. I'm going to go Harper, Michaelis, and Collins. Those will be my three. You can do it too. Just download the DraftKings Pick 6 app. Use that promo code right there, STL Sports, and get a great deal. New customers get $25 in bonus picks with your first deposit of $5. It's available here in Missouri, so don't miss out on the fun. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use that promo code STL Sports for, again, $25 in bonus picks with your first deposit of $5. Better payouts, bigger wins only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
And one thing happened this morning that we think the Cardinals and maybe we should take advantage of, and that is that the Baltimore Orioles have a guy that they called up this week. Their young catcher, one of the top 10 prospects in baseball, Samuel Basallo, has agreed on an 8-year, $67 million deal. So the Orioles buy all of his arbitration and a couple of years of free agency as well. And he's a number 4 overall prospect in baseball, just turned 21, and just makes sense for an organization like Baltimore or like St. Louis to sign their young players, avoid the distraction and avoid the bad blood of arbitration. And if you really think highly about the player, then avoid a couple of years of free agency too.
Yeah, and I think this is a great move by the Orioles. And listen, we've criticized the Orioles a lot. One of our first interviews when we had Bernie on, when we were starting up this program and had him on weekly, we talked about the absolute just screw up by the Orioles in having a lot of fan grace and then kind of letting it all evaporate and wasting all of it, despite the fact that they have all these young players coming up. It seems like you really could have convinced the team to stick with you for a couple of bad years because you have all of this talent, and this is proof in the pudding that the talent keeps working out. So even when a team like the Orioles, who is stupid in so many things, figures things out here, it says a lot about the Cardinals, I think.
And they know they can get this guy under contract. They know that as soon as Jackson Holiday gets to 6 years, he's going into free agency. We know who he's represented by, right?
Yep.
Scott Boras. So he's headed into free agency, and they aren't going to have him for the long term. Rutschman is in the last year of his contract, although he still has arbitration left. He's probably headed towards free agency, and he's had a couple of down years after 2 great years to start his career. The last year and a half have not been great for Adley Rutschman, but they want to sign Henderson. They like him a lot. They have Jordan Westberg. They've got Colton Cowser, the rookie of the year last year. They got a lot of really good players there, and they have, I guess, clearly determined that Basallo is one of them.
Mason Windu, just think if the Cardinals would have signed Gorman and Walker to 8-year deals before they proved themselves in Major League Baseball, maybe they wouldn't have screwed with them so much.
Mm-hmm.
That was the point I was trying to make earlier with Bernie. Look at the Brewers this year. Look at Bryce Terang's last 2 years. Cardinals fans would have demanded that somebody else play ahead of him because he was hitting, 240 with an OPS around in the 90s, despite the Gold Glove defense. Because we had people halfway through this year bitching about Mason Wynn's hitting, despite the fact that he also Gold Glove, borderline platinum glove level player. No one was bitching about Bryce Terang when he was winning a platinum glove with the Brewers because they had the long-term view of things correctly scoped out, and that's at second base, not even shortstop. Or Sal Friedlich, like I brought up. He's not a dominant player, but he won a Gold Glove at the right field position last year with a below 100 OPS plus because they said we're going to bring him up and we're going to let him develop. He hits year number 3, and now he's a 119 OPS player. All these guys in the Brewers are 25-year-olds with 119 OPS players, except for Rhys Hoskins and Christian Yelich. They made the move, and then they give the player, because they decided you're a major league player, they say, figure it out. The ups and downs of a major league player are going to be here, but you're going to grow as a player. The Cardinals have refused to do it, and that's why 8-year deals for Gorman or Walker might not have worked. But I also like to think the mindset would have been different with those players if you had locked them in.
And I think that the team has to, and that may or may not be the case, but at some point you have to, as an organization, you have to take some chances. And especially if you're good at what you do, and Baltimore thinks they're good at what you do, you have to think, okay, we really like this player. We think he's going to be great. And if you want to get the best value for that player, then you've got to do what you can to keep him around. Look at a guy like Kyle Tucker for when he was with Houston. He made $12 million last year with $4 million of service time because of arbitration. So, and that was his first year of arbitration. And this was the second year of arbitration. No, actually, no, this is his third year of arbitration for Kyle Tucker. But in his arbitration years, he's going to wind up making $33.5 million. If you sign a player and buy out those years and he provides what you expect, then it winds up being a good deal. And if you don't, then if he doesn't perform to that level, it's not crushing to you financially. If you sign those deals, it's a gamble. You can either, if you're really good at what you do and evaluate talent, you can get a lot of production for less money, or if you're not good at what you do, it's not a devastating blow to your payroll if he doesn't turn out to be what you thought he was going to be.
And the risk here I was saying is I'm going to pay you $6 million right now when I could probably pay you $1 million, so that when I could when the market would tell me to pay you 30, I'm only paying you 18. That's where the benefit is. That's why it's a risk. There's no doubt about it. The player by year 4 doesn't pan out. You're all of a sudden you're paying them $16 million for a player that is bad. We see what $16 million negative players can do to a roster. Miles Michaelis, stand up. And so it is undoubtedly a risk. But everything we're talking about with the Cardinals over the last few years is them being too risk adverse. So I don't know why fans would be against something like this.
And I think another thing that you have to look at, if you are the ball club, is what's that player reaction going to be like when you go to arbitration? Because arbitration is never a pleasant experience. And a lot of times when you take a player to arbitration, you seal his fate as a member of your organization for the long term, because he gets pissed off because of what he hears in arbitration, and he believes that you don't value him when you're in that business realm. So I think signing players to extensions, if you are of the belief, number one, you got to be good at it, but if you're of the belief that player is going to be a star, then you buy out a couple of years of free agency. I think it's a positive thing to do. But
I understand. Yeah, there's a lot of risk to it, but I'm tired of risk adverse moves. I'm tired of holding a guy back in AAA because you don't want to risk him in September or things like that. I'm not even saying you need to make these moves right now for a guy who has nothing, who has 21 at bats in the major leagues and things like that. I think, Randy talked about a Quinn Matthews move. Obviously, that would have contained some risk to it, but
still do it.
I would rather them take a risk than be the boring team they've been in the last 5 years.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And you know what? There's going to be some people making some money here in St. Louis in a couple of weeks, because we're going to have a legendary weekend at the Stiefel Charity Classic presented by Compliance Solutions. It happens September 4th through 7th at the historic Norwood Hills Country Club. You can watch PGA Tour champions tee it up and compete. Here are just some of the names that were at the top of the board last year, and we expect to be back in 2025. Y.E. Yang, Bernhard Langer, Stuart Sink, Justin Leonard, Chris DeMarco, Darren Clark, and more. Plus, you can enjoy a live performance by the music sensation OAR at the Friday night community concert presented by CarShield. That is going to be on September 5th. Tickets start at just $20. Kids, military, veterans, and first responders get in free. Get your tickets today at StiefelCharityClassic.com. You see it on the screen there, STIFEL, StiefelCharityClassic.com. And we will see you at Norwood Hills September 4th through 7th for the Stiefel Charity Classic.
It's going to be an awesome time out there. Can't wait.
It's going to be a lot of fun. You know what I want to do here is the weather apparently bad, expected to be bad in Atlanta today. So they moved the tee times back for the 30 guys playing in the Tour Championship. And at the start of the day, Scotty Scheffler, Scotty Scheffler's pretty good. He was just a couple of shots off the lead. Russell Henley had the lead. He still has the lead, and Scheffler has fallen off. He's at 9 under. He's one shot behind Cameron Young and Tommy Fleetwood, both at 9 under as well.
I mean, what about him essentially having twice as many points as the next closest golfer to him? What about that makes you say he has a good season?
Yeah, it's okay. All right.
I'm tired of us just saying everyone's great without actually proving it.
Yeah. Cam Young has played 15. He's 6 under for the day. Scotty's only 2 under. Henley is 1 under. Tommy Fleetwood 3 under for the day, but we know that he'll get to Sunday and blow it anyway. And then Robert McIntyre's been hot the last couple of weeks. He and Colin Morikawa are both 8 under par, but the story obviously is Scheffler at 9 under, 1 shot back, playing, I believe, with Henley today.
And I believe Robert McIntyre is playing out of his pocket for the rest of his career after what happened last week, and that was insane. To this, I'm still like that tournament that he won. McIntyre was the clubhouse leader to start the final round.
Yep.
And McIntyre is a guy who's been dominating the Scottish tour, but obviously hasn't hit it big yet on the PGA Tour. But he's dominating that tournament. He's 16 under going into the final round.
Yep, 4 shots ahead, right?
4 shots ahead. He has a terrible first four holes, and completely gives it right back to everybody in the place. Really stabilizes it across the rest of the back, the front 9. Has a great start of the back 9, and then as you think he's going to really make a run for it, Scheffler just absolutely stabs him in the chest.
Yeah.
On that final hole, and it's just or the second to last hole, and you got to think that affected the mentality of a guy like that. So
you could tell. I mean, we talked about it on Monday
as he watched it roll in. And again, for me, it was the fact that he started off in the lead, had a terrible first 4 holes, and then rescued it. He was back in the hunt, and then Scheffler just does that to you. You're not going to be right for a couple tournaments. I don't think.
No.
It's going to affect you for a little bit. It's hard to look your girl in the eyes after that one.
Oh, no doubt about it. So I am going to do jury duty on Monday. Could I set up my phone and just do the show and jury duty at the same time?
I don't understand what the courtroom thinks, like importance wise.
Yeah, I don't know.
We have a show to do here.
We got important stuff.
What are you guys doing?
So I did tell you one time when I got out of jury duty.
Take me.
So one time I got out of jury duty, and one of the things they say is if your community needs you, like if you're essential or whatever, you can tell us, and you just bring it to the judge. So people are going up to the judge and saying, I'm a police officer and we've got somebody out and I need to get out. And, it's I'm a surgeon at a hospital and I've got surgery today. So I go up jury duty and I said, well, it's the first day of NFL free agency and I'm on the radio and the community needs me.
They do.
And I did. I got out of it. It wasn't because of that. I BS'd my way out of it. But that was my first excuse. Was the start of NFL free agency.
America is essentially the modern day Rome.
Mm-hmm.
Back in Rome, they used to have gladiator games,
mm-hmm.
and they used to give people bread and beer to keep them away from getting angry at the powerful people. We are controlling the mob with gladiatory games, bread and beer. And if we don't do that, Randy, St. Louis might just lose containment. People might riot if you're not on the air tomorrow morning.
Well,
they need their bread and beer.
So I will. I'll bring my setup so that I can. I'll bring my earbuds and I'll bring my thing that goes on the table so that I can set up. And I will see if we can do a show
live from the courtroom. Randy Karraker here. I can't let you guys see anybody else's face here. Apparently, it's a very high profile case. But let's talk about the Cardinals last night in Tampa Bay.
So but as you're waiting, there's a room in the back it's glass enclosed. And I don't know if they mind if you talk in that or not, but we'll find out.
I feel like you probably shouldn't do that. Yeah, see, Graham says,
I'm bringing my stuff.
See if you get disqualified for streaming this during the show.
There you go.
Let's try it.
There.
So we might have Randy on Monday. We'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit later and in handcuffs potentially.
Can we make one other quick point here, Matt?
Yes.
We talk often about what a juggernaut the National Football League is and how it's really bigger than anything else and how, like, the World Series doesn't want to compete, right? But how telling is it that you've got a Buccaneers preseason game tomorrow and the Rays decided we don't even want to play. We're in Tampa. We're near the Raymond James Stadium. So we're not even going to play. We're taking a day off so that the Buccaneers, who we know are going to crush us anyway in terms of attendance and in terms of attention. So the Cardinals and Rays have Saturday off. A Major League Baseball game will not be played on Saturday because the Buccaneers have a preseason home game. And so the Buccaneers are playing a preseason game and no regular season Rays Saturday game against the Cardinals.
Oh, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
That is how big the NFL is. No, it might be brilliant. because that is what the NFL is. They're bigger than anything. Even their preseason is bigger than the baseball regular season.
That's why this Saturday's an off day.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Isn't that wild?
That's absolutely
NFL's
insane.
a big deal. Yeah. They got some juice.
Samuel House says they do share a parking lot. Although not anymore.
They do, but still. We had, back in the day when the NFL wasn't what it is now, the Cardinals were playing the Royals in the World Series, same parking lot, Rams and Chiefs.
Is across from Raymond James.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So but that's not that. You have enough parking that you could play both games. Baltimore has both. In fact, they had, I think, an Orioles game and the Ravens, after they've been to the Super Bowl, maybe opened up the season at home. And yeah, when the Ray Lewis Super Bowl, the last one, that they played on the same day. So
That's so ridiculous. I do want to say, as both a Mizzou fan and a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, if your stadium doesn't have a cannon in it, you're doing things wrong.
oh, come on.
If you're not shooting off cannons after you score touchdowns, in my mind, we're not playing football right.
Apparently they have guns at Arrowhead.
Do they really? Oh,
I'm just saying.
that one. You know what? That one hit me about 15 feet away.
Why are people taking shots at the Chiefs?
Come at the king, you bet it's not miss.
Yeah.
Or you. That's not aim.
Yeah.
Something like that.
If that person that shot that gun, if Chiefs Kingdom ever gets their hands on him, they find out who it is, and they won't probably, but I don't know if they ever do. Chiefs Kingdom, I think, will probably. You use the term draw and quarter. I think they might do that.
Well, I mean, they had like a publicly known bank robber who was a Giant fan, and they didn't seem to be bothered by him, did they?
Chiefs fan, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Chiefs fanatic or whatever he was.
But he didn't do anything to the Chiefs. All he did was rob banks, but he was more a Chiefs fan. But this person, they came within 15 feet of hitting Andy Reid with a bullet.
Yeah, they'll be tarred and feathered if they are found.
Yeah.
As they should be.
News. Yeah.
As they should be.
As they should be.
What are you up to this weekend?
I'm going to be watching a lot of sports. Cardinals tonight, a lot of NFL. We've got Matrix Midwest has the Vikings and Titans. And then Channel 4 has the Chiefs and Bears tonight. Then tomorrow, you've got a full day of college football that we talked about. No baseball tomorrow for the Cardinals. So, yeah, I'm just going to – and I'm going to try to get out and play. I've got a golf tournament tomorrow during the day, too. I'm going to play in that, and I'm going to hopefully play some golf on Sunday.
There's a bar in Ireland that very clearly Googled Iowa State flag and Kansas State flag. Because outside the bar, they have the Iowa State flag flying, and right next to it, they have the a flag with the Kansas Jayhawks.
Oh, that's beautiful. I like that a lot. That's funny. Good.
So, yeah, Iowa State and Kansas State, not Kansas, facing off in Ireland this weekend.
Come on, Dublin. We know you're watching.
Although Kansas is playing.
Get with the program.
Come on.
All right. Great job, sir, as always.
Thank you.
And a great job by Wilson, who got us on the air. And we appreciate you being a part of the Randy Karraker Show, presented by STL Sports Central. Hey, like this page, subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you can find out when we're on all the time, and like us on social as well at STL Sports Central. And don't forget, with DraftKings Pick 6, the crown is yours. Hopefully I will see you Monday. Matthew will be here. I'll do at least a little phone or
there we go.
We'll do something so that we can connect. And then I will probably be back on Tuesday because I'm getting out of it, we know. So I'll see you on Tuesday here on the Randy Karraker Show. Have a great weekend, everyone.